The only thing we have to
Beer.
is
Beer.
itself.
Beer. So many choices.
Only no function beer well without.
Woohoo! Beer! Hello and welcome to another episode of Beer Busters. We'll bring you the news and reviews of your favorite brews. My name is Dan Baker. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host and brewologist,
Steph Heffner.
and, of course, the demented and fermented,
Wayne Baker.
This particular episode is something we've talked about for a long time, and I'm glad that it is finally here, because this is something that it's a growing sector. And, I mean, you've already looked at your phone. You can see the name of the episode and who is joining us. The folks at Athletic Brewing are doing some wonderful things in the non-alcoholic space, which, man, as I get older, I really need to work more of that into my routine, including last night, because this morning was hard. But all that to say, we have joining us from Athletic Brewing,
Zoe Riccio, Director of Global Quality Assurance and Compliance.
Wonderful, thank you. And
Russ Meister. I am the head of quality, and I've been here since 2018. Been one of the earlier ones.
all right, cool. Well, thank you both for joining us. This is so exciting. I'm happy to have you guys here.
Happy to be here.
Excited to be here.
All right. Well, we got a little bit of housekeeping we got to do, and then I promise we will dive right in. Remember, you listening to this, you can follow along on all the appropriate social medias and such. We are at Beer Busters on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. There is Facebook. We are Beer Busters Podcast. There's beerbusterspodcast.com, where you can go to a little shop section. You got some cool stuff that Wayne designed. There's YouTube, where we are Beer Busters Podcast. And, of course, there's patreon.com/beerbusters, where you get access to cool things like Last Call and the back catalog of those punishment videos that we used to do before, everything. And it's all for as little as $1 a month. Woo!
Speaking of Patreon, we recently released an episode of Last Call where Steph posed a very interesting question to both Dan and myself, and more importantly, our audience, specifically patrons at large. I don't know. I haven't checked in with my fellow Beer Busters if we've gotten any feedback on that question yet, but I did want to mention it here at the top of a real episode where more people are likely to hear it. If you haven't listened to our last episode of Last Call, check it out and send us your thoughts. I'm not going to tell you what the question is. You have to listen.
Oh, it's also very fitting considering the topic of this episode.
It is actually, yes. Now that you mention it.
I won't lie. I forget the question. So
it's even better.
I'm intrigued.
I am too.
Well, I guess it is a good question, and I would like feedback. We were talking about how typically when we would record in person, we would end up by some episodes were like
Yes,
progression of drunkenness, as it were, or at least of mild intoxication. And we wondered if now that we aren't drinking as much while we're recording and we're definitely more sober, are we still just as interesting? Like, is it good quality content, or do people miss when we were intoxicated?
I do remember that question now.
That was the question. Yes.
I'm not sure what the answer to the question is. I mean,
I don't know that I am.
And it's funny because
sure either.
you'd think since we are recording from home now regularly that we don't have to worry about a DD. We finish and we crawl into bed or whatever, or on the couch, and you would think we would. But I think the social aspect is not as it used to be. And I think that drinking is definitely social. So I think that's the main reason why we don't drink as much. So I don't know. So send us polite responses. Like, be honest, but don't be mean.
Be honest, but don't be mean.
Right.
That's a general rule of thumb in life
criticism.
and on the internet. Yeah.
But, Steph, to your point about drinking being social, that's one of the things I admire about Athletic, because it takes the drinking, the social aspect, and keeps that level of it there, but it's not alcoholic, which is perfect. It fits into I know the brewery is named Athletic because of commitments to fitness and health, and as much as we all may love beer, fully alcoholic or not, sometimes that doesn't fit in with dietary needs and potential restrictions and such. And like we said, we're all getting older. And as we get older, things stick around in your system a little bit longer and hurt a little longer and hurt a little more the next day. So as far as Athletic Brewing goes, Russ, I know you said you were there since 2018. How long has the brewery been in existence?
didn't get rolling until the later part of 2018. That's when we really started like pushing out things through the mail and like actually had a distributor. Prior to that, it was really just like home brewing in a building and slowly trying to build recipes.
So what was the inspiration, I guess, behind starting Athletic Brewing, especially considering there was still such a stigma against non-alcoholic beers back in 2017, 2018. And I want to talk about later. I do think Athletic had a big part of pushing them to be cool again, or cool. Were they ever cool? I don't know. But what was the original intention for starting this business?
So it was Bill, co-founder, John and Bill are the founders. He didn't like exactly what you guys are talking about. Drinking and then not being able to function the next day and having to feel as though that is the only option when you're going out for these social events and things like that. And so he quit his job and went to make a non-alcoholic beer good for the first time, because it never really was great to start. It was mass lager that was, stripped of even more flavor and aroma and pushed into bottles and cans. So that was kind of the origin of it. Bill wanted something to drink and not have to feel hungover the next day,
or held back in any way. He did a lot of like weekend warrior, ultra marathons and Tough Mudders and stuff like that. And so it wasn't even necessarily fully being hungover, but just recognizing that you don't perform as well at your job, in your social life, in whatever kind of hobbies you have. You're just less sharp. It takes more to train. It takes more out of you. So it was more, not even necessarily the hangover, but just like I could feel better, even if I felt okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's a good point, because I think I do think there's a little bit of a pressure when you go out to drink with friends and you're hanging out, and you may leave the house saying, you know what, I'm only going to have one tonight. I'm not going to drink. And I think we've all had those nights where we've come home and gone, oh man, I wasn't going to drink that much tonight. And I think having these options takes the pressure off a little bit, like whether you're the one driving or you just don't want to feel like crap, or you have something going on the next day, you want to be a little healthier. I think having an option like a non-alcoholic beer that actually tastes good as well, it doesn't put the pressure on you to perhaps overconsume or consume it all if you didn't want to.
Most of our customers drink beer. Like 80% of our customers still drink beer regularly. And a lot of them, it's like the last beer of the night. So if you're going to go out for 2, maybe you stay at that your 4, because you can have your last 2 be non-alcoholic. Or maybe, picnics near like where you, like I have children, or I have a child, like, where your kids are. And then you're like, oh, I can be part of this and not feel excluded or like weirdly shamed, or, just enjoy myself.
Definitely. And I think Steph made a very good point about like not so much the social pressure when you're out to drink, but just the fact that you don't even think about it. Like you talked about how, the difference in doing the podcast this way and how we don't consume as much, even when we're doing Zoom recordings on like a weekend and we're all sitting around drinking beers, we still don't drink as much just because we're not in person. And I think it's something you don't think about. And I know I have dabbled with some other non-alcoholic brands of beer in the past and have found that they do really help in that situation where you're not going to drink less because you're not paying attention. It's not so much that you want to drink so much, it's just that you're not paying attention because you're just sitting around and you're taking sips, as you're having a conversation or whatever. And I think having a non-alcoholic option in that circumstance is particularly helpful because you don't have to monitor yourself. You can still drink your drink at the same pace you normally would, thinking that you're still drinking beer when you're not.
Our founder would say, there's something to the like barley and hops, right? Like there's a psychosomatic, like you crack that can, and like we do it at work all the time, like in the middle of the day, you can like aromatic experience and the sensorial experience, and there's like definitely a letdown, a stress release there from that alone, which is, which you're still getting all of those things.
That's a very good point. Yeah, it also has just sort of going through the motions, like the smells and the tastes and the physically holding a can and opening it. That's a very good point. That also sort of satisfies a lot of what you're looking for when you're drinking socially.
Well, and even just all of the beer styles that Athletic offers. As you mentioned earlier, typically non-alcoholic beers, it's usually just a 0.5% light lager of some sort. But looking at your portfolio, there are tons of Athletic beers offered in many different styles, and they're also accessible. Like I can go to the grocery store and get cans of them, or they're on the shelf at my local craft beer bar. Was that always the intention from the beginning? And perhaps how do you decide which styles to?
It definitely was the intention is to do more than just the macro lager type thing. I think I want to say this year we had 70 something LTOs come out. So yeah, we definitely target a lot of variety, and obviously most of those are IPAs because that's most of what people want. But we had sours, darker things, lighter things. Halves. Lots of different things. And so that was always part of the built-in thing. I know when we were starting, when we first sort of had to start branching off out of those three, or originally it was just the two brands, Run Wild and Upside Down. It was a little tough just because that was what we were going with for so long. And then we're like, all right, cool, let's branch out, let's do some more things. And it was just the initial break of like, cool, we can do anything we want because it is just beer, just like everything else. And it's just trying to find the right way to do it. And so Freeway, which was our third sort of flagship that came on, once we built that out and we found it really good, it just was so much easier to expand and try all these new things. And that's when R&D really just kind of went nuts and we just spread everywhere into all different styles.
So as far as deciding what sticks, because we're non-alcoholic, we can ship direct to consumer in 43 states. And so that's like the testing ground. Like we have a tap room, but that's our like national tap room. And so we can see what sells there and cycle through and bring things back, or things that are still kind of work in progress. Like this is good and we feel confident in selling it, but like maybe it could be better, or maybe we're going to get some feedback on it. So that, we have, like I said, I think we did 70 LTOs this year. We have 4 flagships and 3 seasonals, and a couple of LTOs that hit distribution, and then everything else is going to go through like directly to consumers from our website. And it's an immediate feedback loop. Either sells or it doesn't. People are saying this is awesome, or people are like, oh no, that didn't love that one. And so then that's how we'll bring up like Sunset Stoke was originally Reed's Red IPA, and that did really well. Tucker's West Coast IPA has been like a perennial favorite pilot program. That's our like unlabeled, our kind of unlabeled LTOs. They don't have a beautiful label. They have a very basic label with like the name, and those go DTC. So Tucker's has been a perennial favorite there. So that'll get re-released in a nice full branded wrap coming out soon. So that's how we decide.
I think cool. You're hitting on something that's very, very, I don't know if it's important, but it's sort of something about the craft beer world where craft beer drinkers just always want to have the new thing, the hip thing, whatever's next. And I don't think there's another non-alcoholic brand out there that is looking at the importance of having a pilot system and constantly trying new beer styles. I think that's something that makes the Athletic brand really attractive. In fact, as I was doing research for this episode and kept going back and forth, I was like, should I subscribe? Which we'll talk about in a moment. You guys have this amazing subscription program, but I knew of all the brands that you already make, but all of these pilot batches. And I was like, oh, I want to, one of them was like a Sage IPA or something. And I'm like, I really want to try that. Like, just like the really unique flavors that non-alcoholic or not, you're doing unique things with beer flavor.
I would say we're founded by beer brewers, beer people, beer drinkers. And that's also how we keep everybody engaged, right? Because like we can make the same 5 things all day long, and we do millions and millions of cans at a time. But like we've hired teams of really creative and thoughtful people. And so what we do is we kind of use the pilot program to let them foster their creativity. And we also have breweries on both coasts. So we try to pair people, like a brewer on one coast with somebody else in the organization who's not maybe a brewer. Maybe they work in QC, maybe they work in packaging on the other coast. And they do like this coast to coast collaboration. Like, hey, I have this idea, or I'm going to help you develop the recipe. Okay, we're going to make it on this coast, so that everybody gets to still do the fun beer things, even though we're doing these kind of massive, runs of the the stuff that gets on all the shelves.
So I have to touch on the subject, and I know that we may not get all the answers we want for two reasons. One, because you guys are involved in the brewing process, and two, because it's a proprietary process. But we have talked on this show a lot about like how like gluten-free beers get made and the different techniques, and like how non-alcoholic beers get made, and how do you package a product that doesn't contain alcohol, that doesn't just taste like unfermented wort. Like there's, you know what I mean? Like, so how much, I know you can't probably tell us exactly what you guys do to produce the non-alcoholic beer, but like how much of a challenge was that in perfecting, you know, especially to create such a wide variety of styles in a non-alcoholic beverage?
So I think that so it was definitely challenging, and I think most of the challenge was the beginning. Getting those two first flagships up and running was sort of really the crux of understanding how we were going to do this. Moving into other things, it's a much easier to iterate on something that works and that has been tried and true, that allows you to more easily jump into around like beer space and that sort of thing. So it is fermented beer. It is not different than other beers. It uses all the same ingredients in that regard. It's not different. We don't produce the alcohol. We don't strip it out afterwards. It just doesn't ever go above 0.5 or 0.49, I should say.
I think a thing I've heard Russ say a bunch of times, you know, I'm not from the beer world. I'm a food scientist. I was a regulator. Russ is definitely more experienced in beer than I, but what I've heard, the way I've heard Russ talk about it is that it's, you know, it's the same ingredients, same equipment. It's just that every detail we have to hit perfectly. You know, our margin of error is a lot smaller at every single step of the process. And some of our steps, we change, a few degrees here or a few minutes during one step, and it has to be dead on, right, or we don't get there.
And without giving away too many details, I imagine that has a lot to do with the yeast and the fermentation, you know, post brewing process.
It's the whole thing. It's the whole thing. I mean, even raw ingredient selection, like it's really like, it's just you could put it as it's an over-examination of the brewing process, to the point of like, if someone in an alcoholic fermentation brewery would like to look at it, be like, wow, from the outside, yeah, it looks exactly the same. But when you zoom down to the level we have to be at, it's like, oh yeah, I guess we could be looking at these and tweaking these numbers, but it's definitely, it's the same, but it's different.
Okay.
That's not helpful. I know.
No, I know. And I don't want you to give away your secrets. I want you guys to keep making your amazing product. It's so tempting to talk about because it's such an interesting topic, but like, yeah, I don't want to push too hard.
Well, and even like, okay, so All Out is definitely my favorite of the athletic products that I've had. Like this, like when I tasted this, I was like, these people need to be on our podcast, because this was the most positive experience I've ever had with non-alcoholic beer. And I want this in my fridge because it is a good beer, period. Like, end of story. And I've never had an experience like that. But my brewing mind starts to go, and I'm like, well, you know, obviously the first thing that comes to mind is ABV, that this is, 0.49. And you think about, well, when you're planning a recipe, you start with your grain bill, and like the amount of certain malts that you use are, you're thinking about extracting the sugars and ultimately like the initial gravity you want to start with, so that the yeast can eat that. And you can get a 6% porter, or so you can get a 10% triple. And I'm like, how do you, and this beer especially makes me think about it because it has such a beautiful malt profile. Like, how do you produce something that has the malt flavor that this has, but not the alcohol? Like, that just blows my mind. I don't understand that.
We're working. So I don't do formulation development, but we have incredible teams who do, obviously. And I think we're doing all those same things. We're just working at a different scale, right? Like you guys, it's like, I don't know if you're like, a musician, right? And there's like treble clef and bass clef, like everything's the same, but you're using the same notes. But we're over here using like viola clef. And it's like everything that you could understand all the words we're saying, but we're in this wholly completely different scale. So they start with the malt bill, they start with the specific gravity, they know where we're going to go, and tweak it from there. But it's just a shift. Would you agree with that, Russ?
Yeah, I was going to make the joke answer of, well, how do you do it? Well, you do it very carefully. And that's because ultimately you do.
Russ.
But I mean, like, again, we're using like roasted barley, we're using black patent, we're using midnight wheat. Like those are the same grains that you're using for full alcohol darker beers. So it's not like it's again, it's the same thing. You're looking at the same grains, you're using those same grains in those proportions to try to make that complex malt bill.
So do you think that once, like you think about most craft breweries, they share processes, they're giving the public tours, like, everyone knows how craft beer is made. Do you think that as this space grows, that non-alcoholic breweries are going to, I don't know, share their secrets, as it were? I mean, I like, this is an amazing business, and respect to you, and protect the process, because no one is doing it the way that you are. But I want to know, I want to be there. I want to see it. I want to hear the conversations. Like, I want to learn from it and understand it.
So
was there a question there?
I don't want to make this sound like a cop out or anything like that, but like there's I was a home brewer to start. I started homebrewing many years ago. It's very easy to make safe alcoholic homebrew. The quality of it is a different story, right? But you can easily make it, and you can drink it, and you won't get hurt, and that's like not very difficult. To transition to NA, there's a lot more that you have to do right, and in the right way, and in the right time, and cleanliness is even more important. And so to like push that information out and then have someone try to make it at home can end in a very disastrous, calamitous event, and we don't want to do that. That's not why we're not sharing. We are trying to protect our company, but that is one reason why, if you just to throw all that information out there, people can get hurt very easily. It's alcohol does quite a lot to keep beer safe.
The other thing we are doing is we're sharing a lot about food safety requirements and parameters. We work with the BA on some of those guidelines, working with the Adult Non-Alcoholic Beverage Association, which is like a newer trade association, getting trainings out there so that people start thinking about this, because it's different. There's, on top of, okay, so you start with like, I need to make a non-alcoholic beer. I need to make a good non-alcoholic beer. And there's a lot of different processes that people employ to do that. Once you have a good non-alcoholic beer, you have to go back through and apply food safety on top of it. And that starts with ingredient procurement through every single step. You essentially have to do a risk assessment of every ingredient and every process in your step, and any way that what's happening could cause like illness or injury to humans, and like how you're going to mitigate it. And then every single time you make it, you have to document that. And it's just a requirement for the FDA. So there's a whole other set of things that is like kind of the most important. So we want people to figure out how to make their product and make it safe. We want there to be other players. We want to be on the shelf. We want to be in a whole section of a grocery store. So once you figure out how to make it good, then you have to figure out how to make it safe. And that's my background. I have a master's degree in food safety. I'm a certified food scientist. I actually licensed Athletic when they opened in 2018 because I was still working in regulatory.
Oh, wow.
And that's the part we really want to share, because there's a lot of ways to get there. And right now, nobody's kind of sharing that information. But those are the key considerations. And it's different than standard alcoholic beer production.
And it's hard.
And it's much harder. That's the impression I'm getting. And it's interesting because I never would even thought about how the presence of alcohol makes it a safer product to produce and consume. And that when you take that away, like there's all these considerations that you don't have to make when you're making full alcoholic beer. That's very interesting.
Now, one thing you mentioned, Zoe, is about the shelf space at a grocery store. And I have to say, the thing that blows my mind about Athletic is the visibility. Like, Athletic beer is everywhere. How?
Where are you located, Steph?
We're all, the three of us are located in Southeast Pennsylvania. I'm closer to Reading, Pennsylvania, and they're both in Philly. But like pretty much every grocery store, I think, in our area carries Athletic. As I mentioned before, my local craft beer bar has cans of it, a whole section. We have choices there. Just the accessibility of ordering it online. Like what we were just at Wegmans in Lancaster this past weekend, an entire end cap of just Athletic beer, which is where I picked up this 6-pack this past weekend. And like venues too. Like,
yep. Our sales team, our sales marketing team, it's incredible. So you talked about making it cool. I think that's as great as the product is, that was a huge part. Like you can't discount marketing contributions to the success, making it cool and being out there. We didn't open sales territories without having somebody to support it and go in and build the case stacks and do everything. And now we have 50 state distribution. So we have a distributor in every state plus online. And I think we're in like 10,000 on-premise accounts right now. And then getting into venues, because the thing about venues is that we can be sold after last call. So there's these huge marketing came up with these huge signs, like at a hockey game after before the third period, it's like finish strong, drink Athletic. Go get your Athletic now.
That is genius.
Yeah, I would not have thought of that. And I'm looking at all the concerts that I tend to go to a fair amount of concerts here in Philly, and yeah, I've seen Athletic. I think at pretty much every venue I've been to in the past at least 6 months. So we talked about a little bit about the process, and you mentioned the marketing aspect of it, and you want to make sure you have somebody in those markets to go and build the case for it and build the accounts. What do you say to somebody, or I guess what is your particular strategy to entice people to try it? Because I apologize if this was tackled earlier. I was dealing with a weird audio issue on the mixer that's off camera. But traditionally, we're all family. Our grandfather used to drink O'Doul's. O'Doul's is, not to call them out, it's not for me. There are people that enjoy it. But we are still kind of in that craft beer bubble. But how do you convince somebody to actually try Athletic? Because inarguably, Athletic is making far superior quality products.
So I think tasting is believing. I think we did something about 2,000 tasting events in the country this year.
Wow.
Between on-prem or grocery, sampling events, and then just still, how Bill got started was just going to races, like going to an Ironman or something. And he would get up before, drive there, do the whole race course, and then just at the end, he would ask, "Hey, can I set up a booth here?" And they'd be like, "I guess if you want." It seems like a weird idea, and then people would try it. And it's that and having a thick skin, the people who go out and do these events have a really thick skin, and it's like, hey, you could say whatever you want to me after you try it, but you got to try it first, and then
cans in hands. That was the thing. That's a huge part about getting people to try it out. I know that when we went to GABF in, I think it was 2019, it was, some people would just walk by after seeing the non-alcohol, just walk right by and not give it another try, right? And there's some that maybe didn't notice because they were busy and were coming up and trying it. And then there's always well, what do you think for an NA? And they're like, yeah, okay, whatever, sure it is. And it really is, it is all about perception, because you had people who came up and just would not even bother, and that's their own thing. And then some that didn't believe it and had to try it. And again, it's just, you got to try it. That's really all it is. There's nothing. It's still beer. It's still beer. So it's you just got to try it.
That's interesting. You mentioned GABF, and I was actually just going to bring up, I know a lot of the breweries we talk to on the show would start out by hitting the beer fest circuit and setting up, at beer fests and events, beer related events and that sort of thing. Is that something, I know you mentioned sporting events and other athletic events. But was that something that you guys do now or have done in the past outside of GABF? It was the beer fest circuit part of the buildup of the company?
It wasn't really the buildup. I mean, there was definitely early on, there were some competitions we entered and beer fests that we went to. It's definitely, we definitely try to get there. It wasn't key to that. It was really because you didn't have to go to a beer fest to get these beers out to people. You could,
right.
Again, it's much easier to move non-alcoholic things around than it is to move alcoholic things around. But no, definitely we had I know in the beginning, Bill would be going to farmers markets and things like that, anywhere that you can sort of get another set of people to try it out. And if you go, if you spend 2 hours there and you get two people to enjoy it and like it, and then they tell one or two other people, and it just sort of expands out from there. So yeah, initially it was not a huge aspect, but it was a little bit easier because you could go to other things, not just beer fest. But don't get me wrong, we went to the beer fest as well. So
that's interesting. Another thing I didn't even think of. Yeah, you could have a lemonade stand on the corner and pass out your beers. It would be totally fine. Yep.
No,
Good
it's
point.
such an interesting line though, because when I go to the grocery store, I still have to pay for the Athletic beer at the special register. In Pennsylvania, we can't pay for our alcohol at the same register that we pay for our groceries. So I guess just the fact that it has even just a teeny bit in.
It depends. For grocery stores, it's mostly going to have to do with how we come in the store. So I also deal with all the compliance issues. And so for most chains, we're going to come in through the beer department. And so then in their software system, it's just like noted as a beer, whether or not that's the state regulation or not. It's just easier because some states do regulate it like beer. There's 7 states that regulate it like beer. And so it's just easier, especially for people who operate in multi-states, where like if it's in the beer department, it goes here. Like their system just flags it for an ID. I order non-alcoholic through like Instacart, and they're like, "Can I see your ID?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I mean, sure. And it's just that's going to be a company policy versus a state regulation. But there are a few states that do age restrict it regardless of if it's fully regulated, and then there are some states that fully regulate it just kind of due to antiquated definitions that don't have a floor like the federal definition.
So what about when you order it online? Does it have to have this contains alcohol sticker on the box and I have to show the UPS driver my ID? No,
because we only ship it in places where there's no restrictions on it.
Okay.
So we don't do it in any of the states that regulate it like beer. The only state where we would be able to do it, I think it would be Nebraska, but we haven't. There's a lot of like hoops to jump through, like making sure that any one human gets only so much per month, et cetera, et cetera. So we haven't done that yet. So it's just a regular, like a soft drink in the mail in the 43 states that we can ship it.
Zoe, I feel like I need you in my circle of friends. So, because I feel like you are just a wealth of knowledge of all these things that I just wonder about and don't know.
And we also are doing D2C in Canada, Australia, the UK, and parts of the EU.
Wow.
Nice in the EU.
Now, what about shelf life? I know you guys are both. Is shelf life, like especially shipping around the world, is that similar to what do you call
alcoholed?
Non-alcoholic, because this is still
alcoholic
beer.
Yeah, exactly.
Alcoholic beer. Okay.
The alcohol beer. It's a little bit longer. So one of the things we do for food safety is we tunnel pasteurize it. So once it's already in the can, it goes through a pretty rigorous pasteurization process, much more rigorous than even traditional macro alcoholic beer. We have to have a shelf stable product, and what shelf stable means for the FDA is no microbial activity in the can. So there's none. We can't have even a little bit, because then it becomes illegal, right? If it goes above 0.5, if you have a product that's, 6.2 versus 6.6, when it gets to the consumer, it's not really going to be a big deal. It's going to be a big deal for us. Yeah. So that pasteurization kind of is a battlefield for the product, and it's already gone through a lot. And we say, most of our products are going to last pretty well for 6 to 8 months. We do rigorous shelf life testing all the time, and just constantly with every new product, and then just old products, any formulation tweaks, and new piece of equipment, new supplier, or whatever, we're doing shelf life tests. So I would say it's longer than traditional alcohol beer. But still the same things. And when it goes bad, it's the same things. It's going to taste oxidized. We're fighting the same struggles with like making sure that those DOs are really low in the can. We're looking at DO and TPO every hour to make sure that we're going to maintain the shelf life that we want. And that's all Russ's team.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like flavor degradation and oxidation are our biggest enemies, right? It's really just like we can make it fantastic that first month. It's gonna be perfect just the way it is. But again, hops fall out. That's just something that happens. It's just that's not a alcohol related thing. I mean, yes, you can have different oxidation notes and different degradation with alcohol as well, but it's still gonna degrade just like any other volatile food product. Is just age or time. Time is the enemy.
Refrigeration helps.
Yeah, that's one thing I know we've talked about with a lot of breweries in the sort of quality assurance pipeline after it leaves the facility is the temperature control. Because a lot of beers, especially like here in Pennsylvania, I know like years ago when like you basically had to go to beer distributors in the state to get beer. That's changed a lot now, and you walk in and like it could be, below freezing, it could be 100 and some odd degrees, and the beer's just sitting out there on the floor. Is that a bigger problem, a swings in temperature for your product, or is it pretty much the same issues that you're dealing with?
I'd say it's the same issues in general overall, but like because we're already like hurting our beer in our own building with the pasteurizer, we pre-age it in a way before it even leaves the building. So we do probably do enough of damage initially to know if there's going to be a significant issue before it sort of sits and waits for a while. But again, any temperature swings, it's really the cycling that's the problem for the most part. And yeah, that is just as damning to our product.
Right. And you said pasteurized in the can, and forgive me if I'm ignorant here, but isn't that a process that involves like intense heat?
Yes.
So the cans just have to be able to stand it?
Yeah, it's like it's a big tunnel. So the cans essentially take a shower. They go in really cold. It gently warms them up. They get like a warm shower for 20 minutes, and then it cools them back down to the cold shower.
Okay, got it. So it's not like instant temperature change that's going to have an effect. Yeah.
It's very different than flash pasteurization.
Right.
It makes me think of the Jetsons bathroom. My dream bathroom, where Jane just gets in the chair right out of bed and then goes through, and all of a sudden she's dressed and clean and hair done on the other side. That's my dream bathroom. But that's
my dream. My dream is to be pasteurized slowly over about 20 minutes. That's what I want.
A nice, gentle 20-minute shower sounds amazing, where it eases you in nice and warm and then cools you down. Like...
and the bonus is it stops all microbial activity. Exactly.
Yes. Oh, maybe my Jane Jetson shower is in my future one day.
Yeah, maybe.
What year was that supposed to? What year in the future? Does anybody remember?
Probably like 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, like 2020.
We recently passed George Jetson's birthday, like the date of birth, within the past couple of months.
Okay, so like another 30 years. Yeah. He's got to grow up and have kids and everything first. So we still have time to invent all those things, don't worry. Well, we talked an awful lot about the very unique product that Athletic produces, but you guys are also very conscientious as a corporation, and do a lot of work giving back to the community and being a certified B corporation. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that means?
So Benefit Corp means you have a responsibility to benefit humans and the planet in addition to just the corporation. It's audited and maintained and certified by a third party. That's like, hey, are you doing good things? Are you treating people well? Are you being thoughtful and sustainable in your practices? So we currently donate 2% of all sales to park and trail cleanups across the world in any area that we operate. I think it's $2.5 million since 2018. A little over $1 million this year alone, with 106 grants. And so it's a lot of little grants, a few $1,000 or $10,000 to clean up some park trail in a location, inner city or out in the country, just because we want those spaces to exist and to be available. We also do 1% or so to impact programs. So that would be for people who are, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So how do we make sure that everyone gets a chance to be in craft beer if they want to be? We are with a few other breweries in New England sponsoring like a diversity in brewing scholarship for the next 5 years through Sacred Heart, and just trying to make sure that we're being thoughtful about what we do, the way we care for the humans in our organization and out of our organization and the planet, moving towards solar out west, really paying attention to our water usage in both locations and trying to be as thoughtful as we can be.
Yeah, I know Kevin would be very upset that I can't quote the water usage we have, but I know we are close to world class. That's all I can tell you. Yeah. We're not right there. Some months of the year last year we were in world class, but I think we're like 0.1 barrels of water per barrel of beer shy of meeting
Wow.
that
Because of
mark.
all that extra cleaning we have to do for food safety.
Makes
Fair.
sense.
Blame it on food safety.
Interesting. And
So
so
wait,
it's
hold on, because water usage is a huge thing in the beer world. What do you have in place to have such a high rating?
It's our process was built that way. So like it was not, this is like B Corp is just a formalization of what we were doing from the start, right?
Right.
This was part of what it was built into the company from the start. So with that mindset, you don't go for wasteful things. You go for things that aren't going to affect landfills, that aren't going to drive water supplies, those sorts of things. So if we can be reusable or renewable in some way, we're going to do that. So really it's just building our sort of SOPs on efficiency. And that can be, time, but also it is like resources as well.
interesting. And when you mentioned your water usage and paying very close attention to it, my mind went back to when we were trying to pry details of the brewing process out of you, and how you talked about like one of the big things is paying such close attention to the process and ingredients. Does that translate then to making it a little easier to sort of like make things more efficient, both like environmentally and economically, because you are scrutinizing everything so close?
I mean, definitely, yeah. So like the big hurdle that a lot of alcoholic breweries have is understanding how they can be more sustainable. And it's because they aren't necessarily checking on those factors, like how much electricity you're using, water, whatever, like if you're using gas for firing boilers or whatever. Gas leaks, that's a huge one, is just like leaking things that are leaking, whether it be water or gas. Like those are the little things, but then it's going in and seeing how you can like change a supplier of something, like what's your carbon footprint of your grain? Like, are you getting it from this continent? Are you getting it from a different continent? Like those sorts of things that aren't necessarily impacting literally at your facility, but the world as a whole. So yeah, it's if you're looking at things a lot deeper, you can definitely tweak those a lot easier. Yeah, definitely.
Interesting.
Were
Some
these
tips
things
for our brewer listeners out there?
Yeah.
Something to keep an eye on.
Were these things that Athletic had always known they wanted to do, or were these were these causes that came up after operations had already begun?
Nope, they were baked in. So the 2% was baked in from the beginning with Bill and John, as was a lot of our, I think the impact came a little bit later, but I mean, we're only really under 5 years old as far as being open to public. So still pretty early on. But it was something that they kind of just decided. I think the one thing to recognize is that Bill Schufelt, our founder, was a businessman first. He came from finance. That was his thing. I think there's a joke that there's some breweries that grow are like, we're a brewery that made a business. And Athletic is very much a business that made a brewery. So everything that they have done has been very thoughtful and deliberate from the beginning. Bill had spent 2 years writing a business plan before he quit his job to find a brewer. And he was turned down by upwards of 200 brewers before he found John Walker. And he's like, I have this idea. I have all this research. I think I know how we could do it. I see the hole in the market. And he had, very, very thorough business plan. And everyone was like, you seem really nice. You should maybe go back to your day job, because he's very, very nice. And he would say, he was a very nice people told him very nicely that it was a terrible idea.
But it is a bold move to leave finance to not only go into beer, but to go into non-alcoholic beer. That is a huge leap. I mean, kudos to him for following through with it,
Yeah, he would tell you he's like the world's biggest optimist. So.
Yeah, fair.
A man on a mission.
Yeah.
So yes, everything has been, very thoughtful and deliberate pretty much from the get-go.
No, that's great. One thing I have to give a lot of credit to Athletic, but I've noticed even locally we have breweries that are really stepping up with community involvement and making sure that they can do some good with what they're doing. They may not be B Corp levels, but it's refreshing to see, and it's really great to know that that's been baked in from the beginning, because these are breweries that are well respected, but they started doing it after the fact, once they had operations underway already and figured out the ins and outs of it. But to have it from the beginning says a lot about the mission that he had when forming the company, and I just think that's great.
Yeah, when we were very young, I know that like when it was just a single facility in Stratford, we shut down like one day and we just went up to somewhere in, I can't remember where it was, Northern Connecticut, and just helped rebuild like a pathway, like a walkway through like at a park. Like the entire team, because it wasn't a lot of people, we all drove up there and just like helped out with this park. That was like our first thing. We handed the check, we did some work, and it was a really neat time. So
We actually just had shutdown days in both breweries to build bikes for children underprivileged children in the communities that we operate in. So for our like holiday party day, it was like half a volunteer day. We're building bikes and also pet toys. I think
Yep.
we're doing
cool.
pet toys for humane societies. So it was a full volunteer day. Athletic also does 12 paid volunteer days a year for
Wow.
any employee who wants them. So if you work it out with your manager, supervisor, say, hey, I work at this place once a month, or however it works out, half a shift, as long as you work it out, they will pay for volunteer hours up to 12 days a year.
Wow. At my old job,
Cool.
we got 1 day, and they stopped it during the pandemic. Wow.
You can
I'll shout out
volunteer
to
from
Russ.
home.
Yeah, I'll shout out to Russ. He works for an animal a dog shelter.
a dog rescue, yeah. So I guess it's not just dog rescue, but yeah, there's a local one in Hamden, which I can happily plug. I assume it's called Where the Love Is. It's a wonderful shelter.
He does other YouTube videos.
Yes, we have a YouTube
nice.
channel. Please go subscribe. We'd love
Yes,
to get
please
some
do.
monetization at some point.
Nice. What was it called again?
Where the Love Is.
Is that your YouTube channel too?
Yes, is Where the Love Is. Yeah, it should just be. It's so. Unfortunately, there was a song by the Black Eyed Peas, I think, who it was, that when you type in Where the Love Is, that comes up.
Oh.
Or
Okay.
where is the love? I think is the song,
Right.
but Where the Love Is, and then just type in like dog or rescue, and then the channel.
And that'll come up. All right, listeners, check it out.
Thank you.
I'm interested to see these videos.
I might currently be on the website.
Why not? Why
I'm just
not?
looking at all these different, like, I'm like, I want to try that. I want to try that. Well, and so January, which
Yes.
I didn't even know this was a thing, but is dry January. So there's a countdown on the Athletic website that if you order within the next 3 hours and 5 minutes, I will get my beer by January 1st. So
I didn't even put that together when I was looking at the site earlier. It was like January 1st, okay, like New Year's resolution. Dry January. It didn't even click. Wow.
So yeah, our campaign for January is give dry a try. And so we're not expecting anybody to do like a full 31 days if that's not your thing, but just having an option, right? Like having, just try it out for one drink, one day, 1 week, whatever it is. So we're kind of want to invite everybody who's interested to give dry a try, and not necessarily like a full month cold turkey, like you do you. But just if you've been curious about it, like this is a good time to try it, right? There's a lot of stuff going on.
Or if you're really sad, it's January 1st, and you maybe wish you hadn't done some things the day before. Then this is a nice way to maybe start the year off a little bit calmer.
So
There you go.
we ordered 4 6-packs. We got the Round of Cheers, which is a Brute IPA, which you guys know I have a secret love for Brute IPAs, and I hate that their moment to shine was short-lived in my
It
opinion.
was very short-lived.
Mm-hmm.
Very short-lived. And then we got Lodge Life, which I feel like, Dan, I think this would be right down your alley. Zoe, you're nodding your head. Do you want to tell Dan what Lodge Life is all about?
It's a campfire porter
Bring it.
ish.
Oh, man.
So it's got like
Ish.
it's marshmallow and cacao and cinnamon, I think.
And it's
Vanilla.
vegan.
And it's,
Vanilla too.
yeah.
Oh, it's vegan.
Yeah, they're-
all of our products are vegan unless they contain lactose. So
Lactose,
a few people on the team have been trying to do some milkshake options, but pretty much everything else is vegan. Processed.
We also, of course, are picking up the Sage IPA because Sage is amazing, and the ESB, of course. So those are the 4
yeah.
that we just ordered.
I just respect the fact that you're making non-alcoholic beers in a variety of styles, which yes, but you're also making an ESB,
Yeah.
which you don't have to.
Yeah, and you don't see that at many
Well,
even like
you know,
fully
you
alcoholic
should.
breweries. Yeah.
Russ, was that your project?
That was, yeah. So that's something that, like, again, people who work in a brewery are brewery people. They like beer of different varieties, right? Like, not everyone wants an IPA that's got all the new hops in it all the time. So, like, I know that was myself, Sarah, and Dave on the East Coast team were like, yeah, why don't we make an ESB? Like, what's the worst thing can happen? It's malty. Cool. Like that sounds great, right? I mean, it's definitely not selling as hot as like something with like, Galaxy all over it, right? Whatever. But it's still something that's like, it's a really nice beer that like, I think that we can do really well. Like it's a lot easier to build a really nice malt backbone for NA because we don't have alcohol. We can't dissolve as much of the hop oils and compounds and things like that that you can in full strength beers. And so malt is like a lot more fun to play with for us at times. And so like ESBs are a great way to really showcase malts that people don't really think about anymore or care about anymore. So I think malt still has some time to shine in the future. It's not all about hops. I think things are going to change with the way like water usage even in hop growing regions are going and things like that. So like we're gonna maybe fall to trying to find more expression via malt or bioengineered yeast or something like that. Who knows what people are going to be doing. But
yeah,
I noticed you guys use a lot of organic malts. Are you sourcing that from local malting companies near the two facilities?
There's really not a lot of organic malt out there that like, especially small scale stuff is the small scale ones are harder to trust just because they're so small that they don't have their consistency there. And that's something that we really need again for our things that were really, fine shavings of numbers that matter to us. The consistency is very key. So it's really hard to go for something that's a newer process, things like that. We do for our hometown harvest every year. We do use local malt and hops from local like places, but there's a lot more risk baked into that we know about and we can play with in that regard. But not as local as we'd like to be, I should say.
Mm-hmm. What is hometown harvest?
So it goes back to think of Sierra Nevada's like Celebration. It's like that big malt like crystally IPA of like yesteryear, whatever you want to call it, like something that isn't really necessarily respected and enjoyed as much as it was in its heyday. And now it's something that we still really enjoy. And I think people, if they have it once in a while, can.
It's an autumn release where we, this year, I think we only made it in California, but it was made with, Western, malt. It was Admiral, right?
It was Admiral, yep.
Admiral malts. And I think probably Pac Northwest hops, which we use regularly. And then I think in the East Coast, when we made it on the East Coast, you guys got some malts out of
Thrall Malting. I cannot remember where they are. They're somewhere in Connecticut. And then there was two local hop purveyors as well that I'm blanking on. Smokedown Farms, and there's another one.
There's also just the matter of scale, right? There's only, for scale and consistency, we use some pretty large suppliers. Scale, consistency, and food safety, like, making sure that our suppliers recognize that they're providing a food ingredient. There's different regulations there or different requirements there than maybe most brewers think about.
Well, and did we mention your capacity? What California has the capacity of like 300,000 barrels or something crazy like that?
California's at like 120,000, like that, and, just that facility.
Yeah. And then in Milford is 150,000 square feet. And it will be probably by the end of next year or in the next couple of years at 450,000 capacity. So we're in the top 20 craft brewers by barrelage already.
I know, right?
That's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And we're solely dedicated to non-alc.
So how has the rest of the craft beer, the industry people been? Has Athletic been sort of welcomed with open arms? Like you mentioned, you were at Great American Beer Festival. Like,
I think it's another tasting is believing. I think, it's safe to say we're the most awarded non-alcoholic beer brand out there right now. I think we're upwards of 75 awards or something along those lines. Definitely north of 60. And a lot of them are against alcoholic, traditional alcohol beer. I think in 2020, it was shocking because we won the Supreme Beer Trophy for the International Beer Challenge for Free Wave. And they kind of wrote to us and they're like, this has never happened before. We don't know what to do. And so, we had won gold and then we'd won the country and then we won Supreme Beer Trophy. And then so we were like Brewery of the Year of North America. and it was really exciting, and that's happening. And we were just Vine Pair's Brewery of the Year for 2020 or 2022, and so we keep kind of getting these things. So like beer's coming around, but it's tasting is believing. Like we're getting there because we're winning awards, and some of the awards we're winning, like our Upside Down, it's our gluten reduced product, frequently wins categories against traditional elk beer because we'll enter it in as just like a gluten free or gluten reduced depending on which country you're in. It's the same product and it's the same test, but what we call it in every different market that we sell in has different regulations. So that frequently wins against just other gluten-free or gluten-reduced beers, traditional elk. So that's, I think, how we get them. And then also, we see the sales, right? Where we started with Whole Foods, and where I think non-alcoholic is 8% of their beer sales.
Oh, wow.
So, it's big. So once it's just seeing is believing.
Well, every time you go to the store, I am surprised. Like Brooklyn Brewery, they have a non-alcoholic mixed pack, like 12-pack that you can buy now. Lagunitas has kind of entered the space for a while now. They started with like their hop water, and then they had their non-alcoholic products. But seeing these bigger craft, well, I don't know if Lagunitas isn't really craft anymore, but just seeing these bigger breweries, non-macro breweries, investing time and space in this area, like it's exciting, like there's now like there it starts with like a non-alcoholic shelf and then an end cap, and now like it's starting to become an aisle. Like, well, and it's an open road, right? In Europe it's already a thing, right? Mm-hmm. There are countries where it's 5, 10, 15% of beer sales. Everyone has one. There's one at the bar and it's decent. And so we're kind of like, we're really behind the times here. Like, so we see what it can be in other countries. And that was a lot of part of Bill's initial, business plan research is like, hey, there are other beer centric markets in other countries that are like, yeah, this is a thing. It's like 15% of the market. Here we're still like less than 1%. So there's just open road. Yeah. I may be ignorant. I don't know the answer to this question. Is Athletic available on tap at certain places? Like you mentioned about over in Europe, they have it on at a bar, just a non-alcoholic.
It's in the works. There's a couple of very small places near our current San Diego brewery that have it, or not small places, but there's a couple of very specific accounts that we're friends with. We're kind of doing a test market. But again, it came down to food safety. That's going to be our biggest our biggest hurdle. We've been really careful to do a lot of research to make sure that when it's available, we feel I can sleep at night. So,
well, and I guess you have to be concerned about draft lines too.
Yeah, that was my thought.
Thinking,
you lose the quality control because if they don't clean the draft lines right, there's contamination, which could lead to perhaps trace amounts of alcohol getting into somebody's glass.
Yep.
There's a lot. So we've been doing a lot of research, working with a couple different partners, a couple different ways to trace things throughout the supply chain, and ways that we feel comfortable and confident to release it. So it is definitely a project that we are actively working on, and we'll see where it goes. We definitely wouldn't have the variety that we have available in cans, but it's never say never, I think, is what we have learned at Athletic. Every time they're like, let's do this. And and as director of quality assurance and compliance, my immediate thought was like, no, why? And then it's like, okay, all right, yes, but, or yes, and, right. Yeah, we can do anything you want to do, but here's how we have to do it. Right. And then they do it. And to Bill and John's credit, they really have thought about that from the jump. How do we do this safely? They are, qualified in preventive controls, qualified individuals. It started with them. Do you like how to make a food safety plan? What to do? How do we invest from at the beginning of everything we do to make sure that we're doing it the right way from the start? And that involves doing a lot of our own internal research. Like Russ and my team, we spend a lot of time completing our own studies because the literature isn't there. So when we also talk about like what's our process, it's not because we don't necessarily want to share. It's just like we've done all the work because there isn't literature there to go. There's not 80 books on a shelf about craft brewing non-alcoholic beer.
Right.
We're literally designing each study. We have a little baby pass. Like we built a new brewery, and I was like, okay, what I really want is a mini pasteurization simulator, right? Because that goes back to like, if we could pasteurize it lower and still have a safe product, could we increase the shelf life? Maybe. But could we improve the lives of the people on the packaging line if we could run 10% faster? Can we reduce the hours of time of coverage that we need on those shifts? And maybe somebody doesn't have to come in at 3 a.m. every day.
Right.
So kind of that full scale of doing all your own studies and having the support from leadership to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's been huge. And that's Bill and John from the jump.
That's cool.
It's interesting, because
you guys are going to be the experts in this space. Like it's so exciting to me. Like the knowledge that you possess and like everything that you've been through, success and not. I'm sure there's been a lot of hurdles and a lot of unsuccessful days, but like this space is continuing to grow, and you guys will be the experts, and that's exciting.
When I hired my compliance specialist, I was like, I need you to become an expert in non-alcoholic beer labeling and advertising and regulation. There are none yet, but I need you to want to become that. And she's incredible. And so, yeah, very much so. When we interview people, we're writing the book. So you got to really be motivated to like do the work, because you're not going to find the answer anywhere else. Russ, what were you going to say?
I forgot now. I think it was to do with like the viewpoint. So like, as I think Zoe said, Bill and John's idea was to look at everything from like a bird's eye view. Like, so like, yeah, if we're starting something, we want to be able to see it all the way to the end. Like, but at the same time, we talked earlier about like having to have this super microscopic focus on everything we're doing. So it's seeing all the things all the time everywhere. And so it's that's why we said earlier, it's hard. There's a lot to look at.
And we have really an incredible, like, cross-functional, cross-continental team that, everyone comes at it from a different space, right? There were no just like NA brewers to start. So it's not like we had this huge pool of people that wanted to come work here. It's like, hey, we're doing this thing. And so the people that we have come from a lot of different backgrounds, and it's incredibly helpful for innovation, because everyone sees it a different way. Everyone comes to the table and says, hey, well, but did you think about this? Or why are we doing or not doing this? And it's, I've talked about it with Russ and with John. One of the most important things is failing, right? Steph said, you've probably had a lot of bad days, and we absolutely have had a lot of bad days, and a lot of things go wrong. I frequently say, as director of global quality assurance, we're not in the business of making okay beer, right? If it's not good, it doesn't get packaged. If it gets packaged and it's not good, it doesn't leave the building. And those are hard decisions to make. And for like true innovation, you have to just be comfortable to like fail and to ask the stupid question. Like you always have to feel like maybe you're not the smartest person in the room. You'd be like, am I missing something? And somebody will be like, oh, I didn't think of that. Or it's this because, it's X because Y. And the whole team is incredible, really, through and through, I think, which makes it possible.
Yeah, I mean, when you're inventing basically a market space and a new product, like that makes sense. You got to have a lot of, I mean, I was just, as you were saying that, I'm thinking I lost track of the number of times tonight. I was like, I never would have thought of that. I never would have thought of that, and it's just like all those little things, and having diverse backgrounds coming to the table helps, I guess, think of all those things you need to think of. So another thing I didn't think of.
Steph had mentioned the other breweries that have their non-alcoholic stuff, like Brooklyn and Lagunitas had their hop water and whatever else. As part of market research, do you try those? Do you compare your beer to theirs? I would imagine you come out miles ahead because of your process, and that makes me think somebody in that situation, a brewery like that, what is their process? They're probably not as meticulous as you are, which speaks to your quality more.
I mean, they're not, those ones you mentioned, they're not solely focused on NA. So
right, exactly. That's just another thing.
Yeah, how much of their scope is really to that project? I mean, I think Steph asked earlier, like, well, how did other breweries receive us? I mean, ultimately, like, they're all like, yeah, that's super cool, right? But like, we're not going to do that. And then because they thought it was a flash in the pan maybe in the beginning, and now that they see maybe it's not, it's like, cool, yeah, we'll throw a little money that way. But because they don't have the direct focus, like, cool, we have to make this work. They're just not going to have the development that they need maybe to get, that much farther down the road that quick.
I feel like a similar story happened when seltzers got super popular.
Oh, for sure.
A lot of breweries jumped on that, and not all of them were good.
There's one local one that comes to mind.
Really, really bad.
Yeah.
Some of them were really bad.
Yes.
Really bad.
Yes. But on the flip side, some were really, really good. But there were ones that were very, very, very bad because they figured, hey, let's finally throw some money at it, like you said, Russ. And it didn't really work out that way because they didn't think it all the way through.
It has to be, you have to be working towards that as a sole focus, or at least a larger focus than, like, if this is going to be 1%, and that's a big number, if this is going to be like 1% of your sales, how much do you really care?
Right.
How much are you willing to invest in that? So,
well, and it's interesting because on one hand, it sort of validates what you're doing, at least to the craft beer drinker, perhaps. But then I also think about, it's like early days of this show. I mean, talking like 9-10 years ago, talking about like a new brewery comes out and the beer is crap. And if that's someone's first impression of craft beer, like, you have to be careful. So do you also worry about that if someone has a non-alcoholic beer that's crap, which honestly, many of them are, I've had many of them, then they might hesitate to try an athletic beer. And your marketing team seems like they're already on it. Like, don't worry, Steph, we have that under control. Like, we're going to get it in their hands. But I mean, it is something to think about.
We think about that a lot, and it's less, I mean, quality for sure is a thing, but our what scares us more is safety, right? If somebody has an NA that is over attenuated and explodes in someone's house, if somebody has an NA that's gone over, that, like, somebody gets sick on an NA, like, that's gonna be the headline, and then we're gonna be the second door the FDA knocks on, without a doubt. So that's, I think, what worries us more when we are trying other products, because like I said, we want there to be competition. We want this category to grow. You can't be a category unto yourself. There is, no one is. And so, like, for the sustainability of the category, there needs to be other players, and we want them to be good, and we want them to be safe. And so whatever we can do to help them be safe, we will do. And as they work out being good. So quality aside, safety is our biggest concern when we see some small players, and, like, we know that it's not being pasteurized. We know that they haven't thought about everything to the detail that we've thought about it. Those are the things that keep me up at night.
Yeah, I imagine.
Hold on. I have to give you props for how badass the phrase was. Like, well, we let them work out being good. I love that. Like, I know there was no shade there at all, but, like, that was like boss ass bitch right there. I loved it. Yes.
It was pretty good.
We'll drink this while you work on being good. Oh, sorry, I had to call that out. You guys have a tap room at the Connecticut location, right?
Yeah, so the
old
yeah.
Can you tell us what the experience is like at the tap room?
I mean,
it's hard to find. That's why we're looking to so
it's very small, and it literally, when we say tap room, it's literally only athletic products.
Mm-hmm.
Some on tap, some in cans, and sometimes there's a food truck. Like, it's not like a restaurant with things. It's very much just our products in a pretty, like, small tap room in a very industrial area. Yep. So it's not it's definitely cool. It's like, it's a solely dedicated non-alcoholic tap room. I don't want to discount its coolness, but it's not like a big restaurant or anything.
Well, and I from what I'm gathering from our conversation, that's not an important focus for the company, at least not at this time. But for some reason, I remember back in the day, because I actually first heard about Athletic Brewing from a coworker of mine back in 2018, 2019. He gave me his empty 6-pack holder, and he's like, you got to check these guys out. Cause this coworker was going full non-alcoholic he did it for quite a long time, and he solely drank athletic beer. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll check it out. Didn't It's like non-alcoholic beer. Why would I want that? But I kind of remember reading an article somewhere back at that time. And I don't know if it was, I assume it was the founders, one of them talking about like wanting to have like climbing walls and a gym at this big like immersive taproom experience where it was about the beer, but also about being healthy. Like, am I crazy? Was that ever part of?
I 100% believe that was like said out loud. I think they, it's in the list of like hopes and dreams. But like the pace with which we have scaled has put like reduced the tap room priority. It's definitely still there, and I'm sure they would love to do all of those things. But just it's taken off as far as like distribution stuff. In 2018, like this has been way faster than anybody thought it was going to happen in 2018. So I'm sure Bill would really, really love a tap room with a climbing wall and some trampolines and whatever else.
That would be cool.
Glow. What are they? The glow night where you got to get the fluorescent shirt and the socks, the bouncy place.
Yeah.
I mean, that / brewery, like that would be amazing, and it would be safe because you're drinking like non-alcoholic beers.
Really hydrated.
Yeah, he'd be very hydrated. This is true.
Yes, for sure. Need lots of bathrooms. I had another question that just flew out of my mind because I'm imagining myself bouncing in the dark now. And
there's nothing wrong with imagining yourself bouncing in the dark.
I feel like we have to add, like, this question has been a question now, like for the last 2 whatever years, COVID.
Boy.
But so we've been talking a lot about the rapid expansion and distribution of Athletic. Do you think that COVID had something to do with that? With the demand for beer being shipped at home and beer to go with places shutting down, did COVID affect Athletic at all, perhaps?
I think
that, so we're like, I guess to come at it slowly, we were not a like tap. Like we're not draft, right? We're not draft focused at all. So like that was a lot of the problems that a lot of other breweries had, is like on-premise sales of draft was huge. Like that was maybe some of their lifeblood. And then, you send things out to liquor stores, right? We didn't have that to start with. It wasn't a problem for us. We didn't have huge amounts of traffic through the tap room. To say that COVID helped us to grow because we could ship to people's houses, I don't think so, because like even some breweries were able to start doing that, like during the pandemic, people could send through things through the mail. But I think it may have more likely have been just trying to be healthier, because you are now maybe working from home and all you do is sit in front of your computer or whatever, and you're getting a little out of shape, or you want to do something different and maybe not have a 300 calorie beer in like one 12-ounce package. And so I think that is maybe some positive growth for us, but I don't think it was just because we could ship through the mail. But maybe Zoe had something to add to that.
No, I think if anything, it was positive, but I think we were just kind of on that trajectory because we signed in San Diego right before the pandemic. So that idea of growth and getting out into distribution was already started right before. That's when I joined the team, actually, and it was right before the pandemic. So it only positively, but I don't think necessarily so significantly that it wouldn't have happened without it.
Right. Yeah, and that is of the breweries we've talked to on the show that have either opened right before or even during the pandemic, those that had a distribution focused model to begin with, like, had a lot less stress to deal with, because like you say, there are many breweries where their entire lifeblood is their draft sales, and when that goes away, what do you do?
I don't know if we ever talked about the subscription program. I kind of wanted to talk about that because that is really cool. People can sign up on your website for a monthly subscription.
Yep.
You guys are more of an expert than I am. Tell us about that.
I don't know if either of us are. I probably I see all the marketing goes through my department. So I think it starts at 2 6-packs, but you could do 2, 4, 6-packs a month. What you like now, I think they were working on one that would just be the LTOs. We do have a flavored hop seltzer also, and so you could throw that in your mix if you wanted. Day pack, and it just comes to your house automatically. We also have an app, so for only for Apple. The other one is coming. I've been assured. But that also can help you like see what's available, and the different styles and stuff. So it's free shipping on 2 6-packs. And so we find that though, like our customers are our customers. So I think people like the subscription because it's like easy, and then also you can get limited things through the mail, but also it's like there's not really a substitute for just being able to pick it up at your corner store. And so there's been, there's been a learning curve, right? Where like, oh, do we have e-com customers or we have regular customers, or brick and mortar customers, and they're all the same customer and they want the same things. And so we find that e-commerce sales drives brick and mortar sales. Where we are allowed to do e-commerce, we sell more in brick and mortar because there's just more brand familiarity.
Right now, the subscriber only is a blueberry mosaic IPA, which sounds lovely.
Good one. It's a pretty good one.
Lovely. Yeah. I love a good blueberry beer.
Actually, one of my first ever favorite beers was Bunker Hill Blueberry Ale from Boston Beer Works. Rest in peace. And I would get a growler filled of it, and they would give you a pint of fresh blueberries, and it was the best thing ever.
They give you a pint of blueberries? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, with a growler of beer.
Jeez.
I loved that beer. It was so
That's a hell of a garnish.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, if you get it if you would, past tense, get it in a pint at the pub, they would put a significant amount of blueberries in the glass, and they would be floating around with the bubbles and the carbonation. And yeah, I miss that beer. Nobody, well, and I may have to join to try this one, but I've yet to have a blueberry beer that was as good as Bunker Hill Blueberry Ale. Now, I realize they're different base styles, but you guys have an IPA, but no, I want blueberries. I do put them on my overnight oats in the morning. It's quite delightful.
Well, that's good.
It's like you're getting a little bit of fruit, but you feel like it's one of the healthier fruits,
It does feel like a healthy fruit. This is true.
With all those antioxidants that they've marketed to us.
Right?
Yes. I was going to say, if we want to know the answers, we should ask Zoe, obviously.
Right.
The food scientist among us.
They're probably less sugar in them than most other fruits, but I could be lying to myself.
Well, there also definitely is more, I think, for all kind of those like berries and fruits, the flavor profile differs all the time. I think it's probably like similar amount of sugar than other fruits, but like sometimes it's really sour. And you're like, oh, they can't have that much sugar in it. It's really sour. You're like, no, it's the same. It's just also more sour now. I don't know if any of you have kids too. It's like I love blueberries today, and tomorrow I hate them because I had one sour blueberry, or like tomatoes or grapes or raspberries, because they just don't know that like fruit's not going to be consistent all the time.
Yeah.
It's not perfect.
I don't have kids, but I've seen other people's kids do that.
You're like,
wait, there's recipes too?
Oh, to pair with the beers? Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I did not see that
We've
part.
downloaded the app over here.
Oh, in the app. Okay.
Steph's always like,
next episode, you're going to see me with like athletic merch on. I'm totally becoming a believer. There's a punch recipe.
the number of things that Steph has subscribed to or bought or posted or whatever, like, while we're recording. It's just...
Don't make fun of me, guys.
Hey, it's good. It's good advertising. I mean, you're buying it in real time, so it must be good.
True.
This is a space that I have been very intrigued by for a long time. And when I talked to Chris, when I reached out to the athletic crew about being on the show, I said, we've tried this once before and it did not go well. Like, we did not, I will say it, our prior non-alcoholic experience on the show was not impressive. And I sort of like brushed it aside. But, as Dan said at the top of the show, as we're getting older and our bodies are reacting to beer in different ways, to alcohol in different ways. And I just don't enjoy being drunk anymore.
Right.
And I don't enjoy the next day if I've been drunk, but I love the social aspect of drinking beer. And this is something that I have really consciously been trying to learn about and find something that I like. And it's exciting. It's a new realm in craft beer that is new and I'm unfamiliar with. And there's a pizza recipe. I don't know. It's exciting. We get a lot of fan mail.
Yes.
And that is just amazing.
That's cool.
but it's people saying that, like, I used to, like, either, I couldn't drink, or, for whatever reason, or I used to really love beer and I couldn't have it, or I never thought that this could be good, and you guys did it. And so every, like, once a week, customer service will send out some of the, like, highlights of people, like, writing to us and like, this has been really impactful for me. I can't believe you did it. You figured it out. So you're not alone. There's a lot of people experiencing this.
Yeah.
But to make sure heads don't get too big, we, pop onto Untapped and, look at some stuff and it's like, meh, or like, this is a beer or something like all that.
Well, yeah, and it's nice for our team because really we spend our heads buried so far under the sand about everything that goes wrong every single day that sometimes it's kind of nice to get a breath of fresh air, like, oh, look at all these things that go right when you're, we're focused on fixing anything that could possibly go wrong at any day, any given moment.
Yeah.
There is something to be said.
Don't go on Untapped. Don't do it.
Yeah, it's not a good idea whether your beer has alcohol in it or not. Really, you just shouldn't.
There's a lot of NA Facebook groups too that we avoid. We avoid.
We mentioned like gluten free and gluten reduced as kind of a comparison, and the fan mail, and it just made me think that you make an amazing product, and yes, it's convenient for a lot of beer drinkers to slot into our lives where we want to have a beer without the alcohol. But as with gluten-free beers, you're also giving people an opportunity that maybe they didn't think they would. Like, what if somebody can't have the alcohol for medical reasons, but they can have, there's trace amounts, but they can have that. And somebody who maybe hasn't had beer in 10 years because their doctor said they can't drink, and you're making beer that doesn't have alcohol that still tastes as good as traditional beer, could really be changing someone's experience,
I've actually
impactful way.
I have recommended Athletic to a friend who for medical reasons had to stop drinking, and it blew his mind. It basically changed his life and his outlook, because he just figured, no more flavor, no more beverages. If I go to a party or something, like, he can't have anything, but now he can. He has all these options from Athletic, and it's amazing to see the real life impact that's had on him.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely that we get those kinds of thing in the mail as well, and I think it's interesting to think about, because we're beer, right? And like, people have to think about alcohol when you're selling beer, but they don't think about the alcohol that you have in orange juice or juices in general, or like a banana that's sat a little bit brown. Like, those are gonna
banana.
That's a Russ. I like my bananas nicely
liquid.
nicely brown,
fermented.
Liquid.
I like mine green and crunchy.
Oh,
Me too.
No, thank you.
We just bring all the overripe bananas. Everyone just brings them to Russ. And they're like already liquid.
See, Russ, you and I would be good friends. I'll eat the bananas at the beginning of the week, and you can have the rest at the end of the week.
Those are the good ones to make bread with, though.
Right.
They are, yeah. When they liquefy, that's the bread ones. When they're just, I like them stiff, but they also should be thoroughly yellowed to brown. But
okay.
But yeah, that has alcohol in it. So you're getting a serving of our beer in like a banana. So like, you never hear a doctor say, "Oh, no more bananas and no juice or anything like that."
Bread?
Right? It's not like
no bananas unless they're green.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, but it's an interesting point. Like, there's a trace amount of alcohol, which only comes to mind because it's, a non-alcoholic version of a product that traditionally has a lot more. But there's trace amounts of alcohol in tons of things that we consume regularly. So
even like your flavored seltzers, like non-alcoholic. It's just funny, non-alcoholic seltzers. We were gonna do for an April Fool's thing a non-alcoholic hard seltzer. I think, because we were gonna make it as we never did it. It was like an idea we had, but yeah, like even your normal like seltzer, like polar seltzers, if we're using wants, they might have some amount of alcohol in them. So like, even those are again, people are fine with, right? But
I hadn't thought of that part with those seltzers. I drink either coffee, water, iced tea, or seltzers, basically, or beer, of course. And I never would have thought about that with like the polar seltzers.
I
mean, I'm not calling out polar here. I don't know
right. But like a store-bought seltzer brand.
I mean, flavorings, right? When I say natural flavors have, they can be carried essentially in alcohol or, fat or glycol,
right.
If they're liquid. And so most things that are water-based are going to use an alcohol-based flavor carrier. And so it's just part of like everyday life for and the FDA is like, as long as it's below 0.5, like whatever, do your thing. And so we get a lot of questions like, well, what about that? Like, it's really the same. Some breads have upwards of like 1% alcohol in them, and it's there's definitely a consumer education piece to that.
Yeah.
But it's like it's not really any different than most of the things that you're like eating. Like you metabolize it so quickly. There's just no way for it to be impactful.
Right.
Right.
That's fascinating. I've always been intrigued by food science, but I'm nowhere near smart enough to like understand it or really follow through with anything. So just like hearing little tidbits of it is it's blowing my mind. I love hearing these little facts.
Well, usually the factoid you hear about bananas is how they're like slightly radioactive. I think the alcohol is a little more interesting.
Well, Wayne, dare I ask?
Yeah,
Should
you guys
we-
want to play a game?
Yeah, should we move into happy fun time?
Yeah.
I
think we can do that.
completely forgot about the game segment, you guys.
Because
Yeah,
this
well,
we-
whole,
episodes
this
in,
whole
and-
show's been a happy fun time.
Well,
This whole
right,
show has
right.
been a
Aw.
happy fun time.
Well, thank you.
This is true. You're going to have a happier, funner time.
Happier,
And a time of your
funner.
time now. But yeah, I actually kind of did too until like 5 minutes ago. I was like, oh, we never.
Yeah,
we
I
didn't
did
play a
because
game
I was
yet.
just so intrigued by everything you guys are saying, and it's just
Well,
it's,
you know, the thing is,
great.
like we say this every time we have people on the podcast who aren't just like traditional brewers. We ask so many questions because we've talked about beer for 10 years.
Yeah.
Like we've asked all the questions about beer. But when we have we've had distilleries, we've had, cideries, people who make seltzer, non-alcoholic beer, craft soda. Like it's so interesting to learn something new,
Yeah.
in this format that we've been doing for so long. It's cool that we can still learn new things. So on that note, let's play a game.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cheers, the internet, and welcome to Happy Fun Time Games, the podcast trivia segment that is kind of like a viola clef. Hey. Today we are playing everyone's favorite game, Libation or Fabrication. This one is the Moving Pictures edition. So for those who don't know, Libation or Fabrication is a game in which I will tell everybody the name of something, and you have to guess whether that is a real beer or just something I made up. All of the beers, real and fake, in today's game are inspired by movies and TV. No prize for winning and only shame for losing. Let's get started. Beginning, as we most often do, to my virtual left with Dan, our first beer of the game. Is this real or is it fake? This one is called Avatar, The Way of Wit Beer.
Oh God, please be fake. For the love of God, please be fake.
Dan is desperately hoping that is fake. Steph, what do you think?
Yeah, fake.
Also saying fake. Two fakes so far, Zoe.
I'm going to go with fake.
Oh, also going with fake. Russ, you going to agree? You're going to buck the trend?
I mean, I want to buck the trend, but at the same time, like that I feel like you wouldn't make a wit beer if it was going to be an Avatar beer, but that's just me. So I'm gonna go with fake.
Okay, very good reasoning.
Unless it's a blueberry wit beer.
Oh, well, yeah, that could work.
That could work.
Feel
But
like
it's
we gotta
fake,
put
and
that
I
in the
didn't
name.
think of that. So it is, in fact, fake. The one thing I would thought would have given this away that often does when I do like fake pop culture references is that it's so new. Like
Yeah.
no one had time to make a beer about it. You know what I mean? Like,
You can't get that approved yet that fast.
yeah, exactly. Although, you could have planned ahead because people knew that movie was coming. Anyway, the reality of this beer is as disappointing as the entertainment factor of the film on which it is named.
Oh boy.
And that it doesn't exist. I've actually never seen any Avatar movie. I don't know if they're any good. I've just heard that this new one's not that great.
The
So I
first-
figured I'd jump on that bandwagon.
The first one was visually stunning, but it was just Pocahontas with blue people.
That's what I've heard. I've heard that this new one is like a feast for the eyes, but not much of a story.
Yeah, I have no intention of seeing the new one, but hey, to everybody who liked it, cool. I'm happy for you.
Learn about beer and get movie recommendations here on Beer Busters. There is a home brewery.
Movie unrecommendation.
There is a home brewery on Untapped called Avatar Brewing. They brew the rather aggressively named Throat Punch IPA series.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. There we go. Moving on to our next beer of the game. And Steph, you are going to guess first on this one. This beer is called Fraggle Bach.
No! Please let it be real and I want it.
Steph, as desperate that this is real as Dan was that the last one be fake. Zoe, do you think that's real or fake?
I'm going to go, I second Steph's answer. I think it's real and I want it.
Hoping it's real, wanting it to be real, manifesting it into existence. Russ, what do you think?
I'm trying to like play the psychological game right here because there's like a pattern. Is it fake, real, fake, real? Like this sounds legitimate, totally legitimate. There's like people who grew up in that time period know that and like then went to work at a brewery. But I'm gonna try to get some extra points and say fake.
Okay, I like a good strategy. Russ is saying fake. Finally, Dan.
I think I have to say real also.
Oh, everyone but Russ said real. Everyone but Russ was correct because this one is real. There is no method to the madness. Do not try and figure it out. Let the music play. Worries for another day. Fraggle Bach is an 8% ABV Doppelbock from Portsmouth Brewing, which is in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. It is made with 100 pounds of Belgian rock candy. They say the Doppelbock is big on the malt profile with a classic clean lager finish. It was brewed originally for Liar's Bench Brewing's annual Bockfest in 2019. Fraggle Bach. Really real beer. Moving on to the next one, and we have come to Zoe to guess first on this one. Our next beer is called The Big Labruski.
I feel like that has to be real.
Saying
Like somebody's done that. I feel like multiple people must have done that.
too obvious to be fake. Russ, what do you think?
I'm gonna hard agree. The Lebowski is definitely a popular character.
All right, saying it's real as well, Dan.
I'm going to say real as well, and I'm going to venture a guess that it is a White Russian Stout.
All right, Dan saying real, and also calling the style ahead of time. And finally, Steph.
You know, Oakbrook used to show the Big Lebowski and release their White Russian Stout on the same day.
I could never make it, and then they were always out by the time I could get there.
I was there once, but I'm going to give another. I don't like that movie, so I couldn't make it to the end. But good beer, bad movie. Real. It has to be.
Shots fired right there.
I know, right? It's a hot take.
It is one of my favorites. Just going to throw that out there. I haven't watched it in a while.
And our listeners know I'm just not a movie person. I am not easily impressed when it comes to movies. I only saw Die Hard for the first time ever like 2 weeks ago.
I've never seen it.
I have also never seen it.
A lot of movies. Yeah.
Well, it's a Christmas movie, so you can watch it. You know, this
season.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm told, and now I understand why.
I saw Love Actually for the first time last year.
Oh yeah, that's a good movie.
That's fine.
I've never seen it.
My fiance really likes it. Moving on to our penultimate beer of the game.
Wait, you didn't tell us what we were right.
Oh my God, I totally skipped it. Yeah, it's real. The Big Labruski is real. It's big and it's Russian. The Big Labruski actually was a 10% ABV Imperial Cream Stout from Naked City Brewing in Seattle, Washington. It was an ode to a White Russian and their annual fall to winter seasonal and was aged on Kahlua-soaked oak. Unfortunately, the brewery closed in 2018 after 10 years in operation, but this beer, if you can still find it, definitely abides. Now we move on to our penultimate beer of the game, and we have come to Russ to guess first on this one, apropos giving our recent comments. This beer is called the Schwartz Beer Before Christmas.
I'm going to go with a no.
Going to go with that one is fake. Pretty decisively, Dan.
I'm also going to say fake.
Also saying fake, Steph.
I don't know. I feel like that is a name you would come up with, and I love it. Say the name one more time.
The Schwartz Beer Before Christmas.
I mean, I would drink that. Do love a Schwartz beer. Yeah, I think that has you all over it, though. My gut's saying it's fake.
All right. Everybody has said fake so far. Zoe, what do you think?
I'm going to go real. You can think somebody did it.
Somebody did it. Unfortunately, somebody didn't. It is, in fact, fake. I appreciate the boldness in your answer. But I don't think anyone would be surprised to hear that there are a few beers out there named after the holiday classic. That is the Nightmare Before Christmas. None, however, and sadly, are Schwartz beers, and therefore this most delicious of puns has yet to reach its full potential. So someone out there, please make the Schwartz Beer Before Christmas. We now come to our final beer of the game, and this is the point where we add up the scores real quick to see where everyone's standing. And we've got, there's a lot of circles on my scoreboard here, guys. Everybody's doing fairly well. Both tied with a perfect score so far. My fellow beer busters, Dan and Steph, with 4 points each. Zoe and Russ, not far behind. Each only got one wrong. You guys are both sitting with 3 points apiece. So what we do is we make the people who are winning guess first, so you at least get to hear their guess before you make yours. So we'll just start with Dan, go to Steph, and down the line. Dan, tell me, is this final beer real or fake? It is called Nickelodeon.
The audio cut out there. What was that?
Nickelodeon.
It didn't cut out. That's just the name. Okay.
I am going to guess it's real.
Dan is saying that one is real. Steph, what do you think?
Okay, you know I love a pickle beer, and I would drink this. But I'm going to say fake just because Dan said real.
Strategic.
Okay, a strategic play, Zoe.
I'm gonna go real because I feel like I've been reading more about pickle beers, and it's like in the zeitgeist right now.
Okay. Interesting. Finally, Russ.
I think I will say real as well. That's, again, same timeline, maybe with Fraggle Rock. So sure, yeah.
All right. Okay. So Steph was the only one who said fake. Also, the only one who was wrong, because this one is in fact real.
And apparently I've had it.
I'm sure you have. We probably have all had it.
Well,
we
that's
probably
true.
Have all the beers I ever put in these games, we just forget about them.
You have like
Oh,
16,000 unique check-ins. Of course you've had it.
Yeah. But this one, Pickelodian Foolproof Brewing in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, wants you to put a little pickle in your life with Pickelodian, their 5% ABV cucumber goza. They say it is refreshing yet complex, bursting with flavors of salt and cucumber, and they promise you've never tasted a beer quite like this. I've probably tasted some beers kind of like that. We've tasted some weird beers in the course of this podcast, but there you go. It's a cucumber goza, not specifically a pickle, but I guess the cucumber salt combination leads to pickleness.
We did a Downwinder as our goza. We once threw a bunch of cucumbers in it. This is before Zoe was, on board, so
Where there were rules.
Before there were rules. It was a tap room only draft thing for the most part. So yeah, it was actually really.
I feel like there were some old labels that were
yeah.
unearthed also.
Yeah. It was good.
Pickle.
There was something else with cucumbers in it because right when I started when San Diego opened, there was somebody peeling all those cucumbers.
Was it a cucumber mojito something?
Yeah, it was like the Nojito.
Nick's
yeah,
Nojito?
Nick's Nojito. Yeah.
I like that.
Very cool. Well, I've just added up the final scores to see who our big winner is. And shockingly, with an absolutely perfect score, it's Dan. Dan won. He got 5. Everybody else coming up in a 3-way tie for second place. A sort of German sparkle party?
Sort of. We'll do it.
4 points apiece. Steph, Zoe, and Russ. Thank you all for playing. As I said, no prize for winning, only shame for losing. But everybody did pretty good. So, good showing, one and all. This is, of course, the part of the podcast where we shout out to our most generous patrons on Patreon. We would like to thank the following individuals for keeping the lights on here at our podcast headquarters, beginning with Jen McDonald.
Baby steps.
Eric Dixon.
In a can.
Dana.
Wiener Schnitzel.
James Lambert.
Oh, that was too quick. Sorry.
Chris Mahoney.
Dipla something or other.
Sean Sullivan.
Vindicated.
Ryan Mills.
Christmas YouTube magic.
Jill Chivers.
Best outtake ever.
Who I think recently celebrated a birthday.
Oh, that's right. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Where was I? The one and only That's No Baloney, Joe Manziel.
I'm so fancy. You didn't even know?
I did not. Topher Simmons. And finally, Ben Mengel. That was definitely an Ethan laugh right there. You can tell an Ethan laugh.
Yeah.
If you want to find out how you can get on this list and get other cool behind the scenes perks, of course, go to patreon.com/beerbusters to find out how you can support the podcast. But for now, listen to these commercials so we can pay our bills.
Woo.
Say, Yvonne, remember when I said I'd have to send away to NASA to calculate your bar tab?
Oh, yeah. We all had a good laugh, Mo.
The results came back today. You owe me $70 billion.
This episode of Beer Busters is brought to you in part by Audible. Discover what millions already have. You don't just listen to an Audible book, you feel it. You can go over to audibletrial.com/beerbusters to sign up for your free 30-day membership. Plus, you get one book to get you started. After that, each month is $14.95. You get a credit a month for a book. Good for any book, regardless of price. It's ad-free, premium audio you listen to offline with no interruptions. It's your own library to build. You keep your books forever, even if you cancel. Exclusive member-only savings like 30% off additional audiobooks each month. There's easy exchanges. If you don't love a book, swap it for free anytime. Seriously. That is audibletrial.com/beerbusters for your 30-day trial.
We just got a $10 off code for Athletic Brewing.
I
guess
work fast.
We'll be ordering more beer.
I seriously think I might sign up for this subscription. I didn't realize there was free shipping on the 2 and up, and that's perfect. That's awesome. I mean,
well, you get first dibs on the pilot batches. You get like 15% off. There's like exclusive merch. Like it's a really cool subscription thing.
Yeah. Releases to the Athletic Club members first. Yeah, a couple days early, and then sometimes there's Athletic Club exclusives, app exclusives. Yeah, marketing is their machine.
Yes.
that is the truth right there, because it's working.
Obviously,
they're not paying us to say this.
Right.
I mean, if you guys want to send me free beer, I mean, I will drink it. That's okay.
It's going straight for it.
I did just pay $60 for some to be shipped to my house. I don't even know what to ask next. I'm so like overwhelmed with all the new wealth of information that I've received over this last hour and a half. And well, yeah, and I'm a little distracted by the puppy that's on the screen too. Not gonna lie.
Sorry. So we're wrapping it.
Pistachio.
We love when pets make appearances.
Oh,
It's all good.
Maybe a question that's a little more lighthearted and won't like make my brain explode. What is Russ and Zoe? What are your favorite beers that Athletic has brewed during your tenure with the company?
I guess I have a hot take because nobody else in the company likes hefts except me. I mean, we make them because somebody, like people obviously will buy them. They're always an LTO, but I always enjoy them. And everyone else does not. Everyone has to be in sensory and they're like, this is fine. I guess it's okay. And then my husband bought 5 cases of the Oktoberfest this year.
Oh,
so
wow.
that is his, all-time favorite. And he will eke it out, keep it cold and eke it out for many months longer than he should.
Nice.
I'd have to say my favorite is probably Stump Jump. So it's like think of it as like a dark English mild.
Oh.
Also I think an underappreciated style. We do make that now and again, so that I think is coming out. I think it comes out in the autumn as like a LTO. And then we are not to sound like the sales guy, but our newest flagship, Athletic Light, which I thought I was going to hate from the get-go. But it has Saaz and a lot of Saaz, and I really like Saaz. And so like that's a really, really nice beer.
I just had Athletic Light the other week at our local, at the Barley Mow. I mean, most people who at least live around here know the local beer bar that I drink at. And I was really impressed because I think that beer is a testament to what you guys are doing, because so many flavorless non-alcoholic beers are usually trying to emulate a light lager. So for you to produce a non-alcoholic light lager and for it still to be refreshing and satisfying and tasty, I think that's like just kudos to you guys.
It just won gold for the world's best non-alcoholic lager. I can't remember. I want to say it was in the UK, but I'm not 100% sure.
Also European Beer Star Award, I think.
Yep.
For that too. That was like our first round of competitions with that beer too. So
yeah, for sure. And that was like an 18-month R&D story.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then this is its first year out. It's won some hardware. I also really liked for this kind of weird one-off pilot that happened this year. Somebody out west made a cherry coffee tart. So it was a sour beer with cherry and coffee.
Mixed reactions.
No.
And so I found it remarkably delightful. It was I didn't know what to expect, and then it was very refreshing and delightful, and it hit all those notes. It was sour and it had coffee and it had cherry, and I was like, it sounds weird, but it was spot on for me. It was that time I recently was somewhere and I had pickles that tasted like licorice and I couldn't stop eating them.
What?
And I was like, this is weird, but I can't stop eating it. So it was in that vein where you're like, I don't know why this is good,
but it just is.
It's hitting that spot.
That sounds intriguing. I would try that. I like the pairing of coffee and cherry.
As I say, it brings to mind things like Parmesan cheese.
Yeah, we generally don't like cheesy beer. That's usually something's gone awry.
That was an
Like
attempt at an
sensory
inside
notes.
joke to my co-host that I
Okay.
think they didn't catch.
No, I did. God.
We also have one that's coming out soon. That's a oak aged stout. That's actually really quite nice. I had it mid oaking last time I was out on the West Coast, and it was very, very pleasant.
That was a new one. It was like, we want to put wood in the beer. And I was like, okay, well, how are you going to find the food safety route to put wood in the beer? There's not alcohol in this beer. But we did it. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Ooh.
So are you doing like oak chips, or are you physically putting beer in barrels?
Yeah, it was oak chips. Yeah.
Oak chips, yeah.
I
Yeah,
guess
barrel-
you can control the process much better using oak chips than
Yeah,
Yes.
barrels are definitely not food safe.
yeah.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned that potentially draft could be in the works and is kind of being tested out west. Besides that, what does the future have in store for Athletic?
I wish I could say, because like if I knew
Yeah.
I don't know, because like every time we do something I wouldn't have guessed a year ago that we would have done it. So I know, like when I first came into this in 2018, I was like, yeah, I think this is a good idea. I left an alcoholic brewery, and I think this is a good idea. I'm going to do this, and I think it's got some runway. And then a year later, I was like, wow, that was probably the best like financial decision I've ever made, because I think this place is really going to go. And then we're here now, and it's grown astronomically more than I expected it to. Not because I didn't think it was going to make something good, but because I didn't think the consumers were going to want it so bad.
Right.
So I don't know where we're going next.
That's fair.
I don't either. Yeah, I mean, we have there's still a lot of saturation to do in domestic markets, and we've already opened some international markets. So I think it's about just showing up in every place that we are, and getting bigger and getting the word out there, and just continuing to do what we do really well.
Yeah.
And making deliberate decisions on what we're going to do, each time.
Yeah, and it sounds like, and you've made a point to say that every decision is deliberate, which contributes to that final product, which is so far and above every other NA beer that's out there. And there's a reason that Athletic has the following that it does. And it's like you said, Russ, like the consumers want it. And I think once you get those cans in the hands that you mentioned earlier, I think the sky's going to be the limit. And it's so cool. It's so cool to see this happen, especially for the past couple of years, and how everybody did try to gravitate more towards alcoholic stuff. And now to continue embracing and see the brand try to expand. It's so nice to see the flavor is still there and the dedication to the product is still there, while filling a pretty big void in an otherwise saturated market of alcoholic beer. I think it's great. I love the mission. I love the community focus. And I think, honestly, right when we're done, I'm going to sign up and be a subscriber.
We can share cans.
Yes. Yes.
You order some and then we can swap
Yeah.
cans. I also just want to say, like, the passion that the two of you have for what you do, it is really exciting and like warms my heart. Like, just like the pride that you have and the way that you talk about your job and the hard work that you guys are doing, and like just being trailblazers in this part of the beer industry is so exciting. And thank you both for taking the time to chat with us. And I'm excited to spread the word about Athletic. And I hope that it continues to grow and expand and on more shelves, because I can't wait to try what you guys come up with next.
Appreciate the kind words. Yeah, thank you.
So I'm assuming if anyone wants to learn more, there's always athleticbrewing.com. Is there, social media that they could follow as well?
Oh, all of them, I'm sure.
figured, yeah.
Instagram, Facebook. Yes.
I know there's TikTok people. We just hired a new social media person. They're doing more TikTok things. So
cool.
All over.
There was
over
a bunch
place.
of really fun, like Halloween TikTok content. There was a skeleton in the brewery for like a while. Just like moved to everybody's debt. Like whenever someone went on vacation, you would just be at their desk.
Yep.
So they're doing fun things for sure.
Awesome.
They do quite a lot. Yes. So athleticbrewing.com, Athletic Brewing on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook.
There's probably a YouTube page too. I don't actually know.
But of course, we can't forget Where the Love Is on YouTube.
Oh, yes,
Obviously.
absolutely. Where the love is. Yes,
Oh,
of
Where the
course.
Love Is on
Obviously.
YouTube.
Most importantly.
Of course, we are
And I think
animal fans for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even more importantly, as we mentioned, you could probably go into your local grocery store and
Yes.
find some athletic beer there. So that's a good place to start.
And there is on the website, I was looking at this earlier, there is a, like, where can I find it near me locator. And I'm in South Philly, and there's a lot of options.
Yep. And the locator you can do it by store, like essentially on or off premise. If you want to see bars that have it, or
right.
you want to see, you can toggle and figure out what kind of location you're looking for. If you're looking to pick it up and bring it home, or you're looking to see if there's a place where it's on the menu. The locator's doing well. And if we're not in a place, I think are we still using WeStock? You can tell WeStock that there's a place that you want us to be.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
we will get that data.
That's really cool.
Nice.
Or complain to your bartender, just say something, and if enough people say something, maybe they'll do something.
And we do have distribution in all 50 states now, so you should.
Oh, that's great.
You should be able to get it.
I have to mention, I'd be remiss if I didn't. My girlfriend's sister is pregnant, and she's due in February, and I noticed that there was like the stork package in the store that has beer in a onesie, and I thought it was so cool, and I think legitimately that's going to to be a gift.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Nice. That's a really good idea.
Yeah, I think there's like an
That's
ABC
cool.
board book. There was
There
a
is,
whole
yes.
bunch of
There
was a whole bunch of stuff with that idea.
That's cool.
Yeah, with, 3
like
6-packs, including Athletic Light, Upside Down, and Run Wild, the ABCs of Adventure Baby Board Book, and then the onesie, and then 12 months of baby milestone cards. That's such a cool idea. I love that.
That is cool. I like that. That's neat.
Yeah, so that might end up being something I order soon as well, which is amazing. It's so great to see everything that's there. And like Steph said, we can't thank you guys enough for taking the time. This has been so enlightening and fun, and it's so cool to see the dedication to the science behind it, which leads to the dedication to the product. And the product, like you said, can speak for itself when you get the cans in the hands. When you try it, you believe it.
Cans in the hands.
Cans in the hands.
Hands
That is a
in
great
hands.
slogan. Cans in hands.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, you listening to this, remember, while you are, of course, looking for Athletic and where you can find all of their good stuff, you can follow along with us, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, at BeerBusters, Facebook, we're BeerBusters Podcast. There's BeerBustersPodcast.com. Don't forget to go to the shop section there, get some cool merch that Wayne designed for us. There's YouTube, we're BeerBusters Podcast, and then there is Patreon.com/BeerBusters as well. This really has been amazing. Thank you for opening our eyes to this world. This is so great.
Really, thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, of course. It was.
Thanks for joining us and
Absolutely.
in here in the NA movement.
Yeah, no, it's such a cool world, and we mentioned a few times we're getting older. We gotta factor that in a little bit, and these NA beers can just slide right in with the other ones perfectly.
Don't even notice.
Yeah, you don't even notice. And next time I'm at a concert and I see it, I'm gonna buy one. But unfortunately, this does bring us to the end of another episode of Beer Busters. And of course, thank you for listening to this. Thanks for being along for the ride. If you would be so kind, remember to leave a rating and review on your podcast app of choice. We do that for all the shows you listen to. That's kind of how the algorithms work and figure out who gets featured, and then audiences can grow and such. Man, and of course, go get some Athletic beer. Can't not say that. Well, my name is Dan Baker. I'm joined by my co-host, Dan Brewologist.
This is the never-ending outro. Steph Hefner.
And the demented and fermented
Wayne Baker.
Thanks again for listening. And remember, it's not about the liquid, it's about the experience. We'll see you next time.
And barrels are definitely not food safe. Definitely.
That's too true.
Wooden ones. Wooden ones.
Wooden
Yeah.
ones. Wooden ones specifically. Or ones made of cyanide, I presume.
Oh my
I don't know.
God.
If you could get the whole thing in an autoclave, I guess we'll talk.
If you could get the whole thing in an autoclave, I guess we'll talk. Is a better line than the one I said.
Yeah, I know.